On one side, there's passive peace and tranquility. On the other side, things get a little bit more noisy and hectic. That's a fun and accurate metaphor for the daily life of the residents of the town of Tyrone, Pennsylvania. On the north side of town, a local could expect to find an array of smoke, wires, and rail lines, but probably not an advertisement for an out-of-towner. The Wellsboro and Corning is a largely fracking industry railroad that made a name for itself as a hauler of frac sand to natural gas industries in northern Pennsylvania. It and a Schuylkill Railroad family member are mingling on a mild spring morning in May at the large American Eagle paper mill. And just like the river that serves the mill, the town of Tyrone has a peaceful side and a hectic side. Today we're exploring that hectic side known by rail fans as the double-track speedway called the Norfolk Southern Pittsburgh line, as an eastbound oil train winds through the Serpentine Curve and across the Thomastown Road crossing. Failure to remember my scanner this morning would result in our missing all of the train symbols and crew chatter over the airwaves, but being on a busy line would nonetheless guarantee a nice variety of railroad action. The Pittsburgh line between Harrisburg and Altoona is the legendary former Pennsylvania Railroad Middle Division that was seldom known for being quiet. We're on our way to Altoona, but an impromptu stop in Tyrone made for some great early morning catches. Catches like this eastbound merchandise train not far behind that oil train that whizzed by us not too long ago. Milepost 222.2 is legendary in railfan lore as it automatically identifies a well-known hotspot in America. Tyrone is a city that oozes railroad history, particularly that of the Pennsylvania Railroad and its successor, the Penn Central. Conrail has its story in Tyrone as well, and today the Norfolk Southern continues the tradition of railroading by moving mainline tonnage over its 2 remaining tracks. That's 2 tracks less than what we had in the Pensy days. A lesser sought-after attraction is the Nittany and Bald Eagle interchange at the junction of the former Pennsylvania Railroad Bald Eagle branch to Lock Haven. In busier times, the Pensy would run traffic from New England and its connection with the Delaware and Hudson and Wilkes-Barre to Altoona and points west over this line. Until late 2015, this was the route that the NS 10A and 11A trains between Conway Yard and Northumberland Yard would use. Today, this junction is mostly quiet, but the Nittany and Bald Eagle still gets some interchange traffic here. Unfortunately for us, the only thing moving on this morning were a few maintenance away machines going about their daily morning routines. Looking east toward the rising sun, the rails begin to glow with the anticipation of what's to come. The rail fan buzz all morning long has been for the westbound train 67V, a unit trash train from North Jersey to Mingo Junction, Ohio, with the Monongahela number 8025 leading the charge. And we were in a good place to catch it. Be grateful that you can hear this train and see this train, but that you can't smell this train. The odor from all these trash containers would put hair on anybody's chest. Altoona, Pennsylvania has to rank as the quintessential railroad town in America, even in 2017. Remnants and reminders of the railroad's influence on its prosperity can be found everywhere. The multi-track main line runs right through town, and it's here that the legendary climb to the famous Horseshoe Curve and the Glitzen tunnels begins. Many times, the trains have pushers on them, and downtown Altoona is also the home of the Altoona Railroaders Memorial Museum. This museum has everything a rail fan could want, especially a die-hard Pensy fan. The museum owns an impressive lineup of historic railroad equipment including boxcars, ore cars, reefer cars, locomotives, cabooses, and even vintage passenger equipment. Also in Altoona is the large Rose Yard. For generations, rows and rows of ex-Pennsylvania Railroad, Penn Central, and Conrail diesels could be found here waiting for rebuilding, retiring, and sometimes, unfortunately, oblivion. Today, many of the yard tracks have been torn out, but there's still a lot of railroad activity to be found. The road going over the east end of the yard is a perfect place to catch crew changes and passing freights if you're lucky enough. Today we weren't. But we did catch another heritage unit. This time it was the Central of Georgia, resting between runs between the 9538 and the 8353 on a westbound rock train. The Central of Georgia had been assigned to rock trains for well over a month during this time, many of which came over the Sunbury line. No trip to Altoona is complete without a stop at the Juniata Shops. At one time, these were the largest railroad shops in the world, and today they function as the main locomotive shops on the NS system. A trip to Juniata is a lot like playing the lottery. You never know when you're going to hit it big. The goal, of course, is to find something sitting on the turntable, and unlike our bad luck back at Rose Yard, today we hit the jackpot. The best catch of all came in the form of one of Norfolk Southern's flagship F units, the 4270, the pride of their tuxedo fleet. This one, along with two B units and another A unit, are the power for Norfolk Southern's luxurious office car special. The OCS can be found transporting dignitaries along with top in its brass to points all over the NS system. The locomotive assisting the 4270 on this day is also a rarity on the railroad. 2102 and the 2103 are two of only 5 EMD SW1001s on the Norfolk Southern locomotive roster. The 2102 and 2103 are assigned to Altoona as shop switchers as shown here. The 2100 is assigned to the Enola Yard in Enola, Pennsylvania. The 6192 is an ex-Norfolk and Western SD40-2. The zebra stripes on the pilot indicates that this unit is used almost exclusively in switching service as well. And just like the SW1001s, there are also only a small handful of these locomotives around. EMD number 5095 is the next Southern Railway GP38-2 high hood, now retrofitted with a brand new Admiral cab manufactured right here in the Altoona area. Juniata is much more than a locomotive shop. It's an entire locomotive manufacturing, rebuilding, and painting facility with the capability to do almost anything. Explaining its many functions is worth a video itself, and fortunately Conrail gave us one in 1994 which explains the many facets and functions of the Juniata shops.
Altoona, home of the world-famous Horseshoe Curve. In 1849, construction began on the steam locomotive manufacturing shops in Altoona, Pennsylvania at 12th Street. After construction of the Horseshoe Curve in 1854, freight traffic east and west via the railroad increased dramatically. This created a need for more steam locomotives and additional shop facilities. 4 new shops were built in the village of Juniata and in use by 1889. The first new steam locomotive was manufactured and produced by the shops in 1891. The expansion of the shops continued over the ensuing years, creating the largest steam locomotive facility in the world, employing over 15,000 people, many of whom emigrated to Altoona from all over Europe. Our present workforce is comprised of many descendants of these emigrants. With the advent of the diesel-electric locomotive in the late 1940s, the need for shop capacity diminished as steam was replaced with diesel. Closing and consolidation of the shops began and continued throughout the years with the Pennsylvania Railroad, Penn Central, and Conrail. We are still located on the original site with 17 acres under roof situated on 500 acres. In 1981, Conrail completed a $30 million consolidation and modernization of the Juniata shops to service, repair, and remanufacture diesel-electric locomotives and their associated components. Over 100 years of development and successful manufacturing-remanufacturing history have led Conrail to market this knowledge and expertise to other railroads. Our highly skilled craftsmen are capable of providing you with the same cost-effective, reliable locomotives and components, utilizing the latest quality control methods and standards as we now do for Conrail. Conrail's Juniata Locomotive shops offer the full capability to perform complete engine rebuilds, engine generator truck replacements, complete locomotive rebuilding, modifications, and wreck repair. Conrail's Juniata remanufacturing service will take pride in being your choice for locomotive and component repairs. Our quality production begins with skilled craftsmen. The dedication of our people in using their skills to the utmost has helped forge the Conrail success story. Our craftsmen, provided with the most advanced equipment and procedures, guarantee continued success, from electronic control card repair to complete GE and EMD locomotive remanufacturing. Conrail's Juniata Locomotive shops give you unparalleled capabilities. Our program includes specialized workstations consisting of material handling, customized cleaning operations, computer-controlled warehousing, superior insulation application, environmentally compliant painting, combined freight car and locomotive air brake room, machine tool shop, and custom equipment testing. Each contributes to a working facility that permits us to accommodate the most demanding customer, ourselves. Our locomotive process starts and ends at 398, right off the mainline tracks. Initially, the locomotive is placed in position for oil removal, then continues on to the cleaning shed for a complete cleaning of the car body. It is then shifted to the circle for positioning at the stripping track. The stripping process begins with the removal of the hood, bubble, screens, and airboxes. These parts are sent on to the welding shop for inspection and refabrication. Next, the air compressor is removed and sent to the compressor gang for teardown and rebuild. Lube cooler filters are removed for the cleaning of the cooler. The degree wheel is then cut to separate the alternator from the engine. At this point, the stacks are stripped and sent to the welding shop for cleaning and repair. The engine is now ready to be removed from the car body. After removal, the engine cylinders are stripped and sent through a cleaning process for rebuild back to power assemblies. The crankshaft is magnafluxed, the water pumps, camshafts, and deck lids are reworked. The frame gang is responsible for all welding and straightening of the frame, along with any machining. Power assemblies and component parts are now ready for application at both the engine line and the power assembly changeout departments. The auxiliary generator is then removed and sent to the electric shop for inspection and repairs as needed. The alternator is now removed and sent to the generator gang for complete teardown, cleaning, and rebuild. The alternator end covers are removed, the rotor is pulled, stripped, and then rewound. The rotor armature gets dipped and baked and then readied for armature balancing and commutator turning. The alternator stator is stripped, rewound, dipped, and baked. The rotor is then applied to the stator, end covers applied, and now the alternator is ready for paint. After paint, the alternator is then stored for later application. The unit is untrucked and sent to the truck shop for stripping and buildup. The traction motors are pulled, stripped, and also run through the cleaning process. Rotors are stripped of windings and then rewound. A new shaft is pressed into the stator and then dipped and baked. Commutator is cut and the rotator is applied to the stator. End covers are then applied and the traction motor is painted and stored. Wheel sets are prepared in the wheel shop and later applied to the traction motors. Once completed, the new motor is ready to be applied to the remanufactured truck frame. With new shocks, springs, bushings, spring packs, and brake rigging, the truck frame is ready for the new traction motors. Once in place and secured, the remanufactured truck is ready for paint and stored until needed for application under the locomotive. The locomotive car body is then sent to the miscellaneous shop for straightening, if necessary. Main traction motor leads, alternator wires, and electrical cabinet wiring are inspected. Draft gears and couplers are removed and reworked in the welding shop. Handrails, cutting levers, steps, and any work to be done in the cab is completed. The car body is then ready for rebuild. The machine, welding, air brake, and electric shop are the supporting shops which perform any necessary work that may be additionally needed to the locomotive. The storehouse supplies material to the component shops and also to the entire Conrail system. The component shops at Juniata supply the system and keep a supply of remanufactured items on hand in the storehouse. The locomotive is then assembled, load tested, painted, and given a final inspection. The unit is returned to 398 for shipment after quality control approval.
The Juniata Shops is also the home to many of the massive locomotive rebuilding programs implemented by NS. The biggest of which during this time was the transformation of the 100 former Union Pacific SD90 Max into SD70 ACUs and the ex-Southern Railway high hood GP38-2s, just like the one we saw back at the turntable. Altoona is also the place where locomotives go to recover from wrecks and other mishaps. Locomotives such as the SD70 ACE number 1036 and the Sonic Bonnet number 4001 and AC44 C6M rebuild that were both involved in a derailment out near McVaytown, Pennsylvania last month in April of 2017. A legendary place in Altoona folklore, yet seldom sought out by rail fans, is the former Pennsylvania Railroad Samuel Ray car shops in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania. These shops were of major importance to the Pennsy, the Penn Central, and Conrail throughout their existence. With the NS now the main player in Altoona, the shops at Hollidaysburg are no longer railroad owned and operated, but are still important to the railroad's well-being. The name Deagle, or Daigle, is a prevalent one in the Altoona area, and nowhere is that more obvious than at the former Samuel Ray shops. Today, Curry Rail Services occupies most or all of the area, and they continue the tradition of car repair and now locomotive fabrication. This is where those Admiral cabs and Crescent cabs used on many of Norfolk Southern's rebuilt engines are made. Their own locomotive, a short in-cab switcher resting atop of an EMD traction motor and truck, made for my catch of the day in Hollidaysburg. Just like the shops at Juniata, the services provided in Hollidaysburg are worthy of their own video, and just like at Juniata, Conrail was kind enough to give us one. At that time, Hollidaysburg was still under Conrail's control, but the video gives you a good idea of the work that was, and still is, performed inside of the building.
Approaching the Hollidaysburg Car Shop, one notices one of the largest car building and remanufacturing centers of the world. Our we-can-do attitude exemplifies that the personnel at the Hollidaysburg Car Shop can build any type of car specified. This shop was constructed in 1954 as a facility to assist with the car manufacturing that was taking place in the Altoona shops, which were growing old. The two facilities, the Hollidaysburg Car Shop, previously called the Samuel Ray Shop, and the reclamation plant, were used in unison. The Hollidaysburg Car Shop is a complex totaling 1,670,000 square feet on 38.34 acres. Of that, 724,596 square feet are under roof. Along with this facility, the reclamation plant covers 640,000 square feet on 14.96 acres, with a total of 45,800 square feet under roof. At the Hollidaysburg Car Shop, there are 3 assembly line runways capable of producing simultaneously any combination of new or repair hopper, gondola, or boxcars to meet the needs of our customers. The Hollidaysburg Car Shop consists of general offices, a material center, wheel and bearing shop, millwork area, paint booth, stencil making room, steel fabricating shop, an in-house maintenance department, its own power plant, and one of the most diversified fabrication shops. This shop designs, fabricates, and manufactures parts. Jigs, fixtures, and all car parts, as well as prototypes, are developed in the west end of the fab shop. Inside the Hollidaysburg Car Shop, the manufacturing of cars is handled on 4 tracks running the entire length of the shop. Here, with the designation of columns numbered 1 to 139, the positions are maintained by the finest car builders in the world. These car builders are craftsmen certified to weld, burn, and fit the car to the customer's specifications. In the shop, large overhead cranes are capable of picking up a whole car and moving it about as if it were a model train and placing it at precise locations throughout the shop where needed. Or it can place a car in one of the large tumble jigs. In the tumble jigs, craftsman welders using modern respirator-type welding shields pour on the continuous welding from MIG welders that lie in suspension from all angles. The cars are brought out of the tumble jigs and returned to the runways, where once again the shop craftsmen proceed to apply all safety appliances, specialty equipment, and all other necessary car components. performance. After the car is assembled and its air brakes tested to meet all federal standards, it then proceeds to the blasting booth to be cleaned down to bare metal before entering the modern paint booths, which meet all the DER, local, and state regulations. Once painted, the car is stenciled or decaled with the customer's logo and all identifying marks. After all these procedures are completed, the customer's car is thoroughly checked again by the shop's OK Gang before it passes the Conrail Quality Performance Check. The Conrail commitment remains simply to be the best remanufacturing operation and to meet or exceed customer expectations. Let us apply this level of dedication, skill, and pride to work on your locomotives and cars today. We maintain the attitude, we can do it.
Another often overlooked railfan attraction in Hollidaysburg is the small Everett Railroad. Like many short-line railroads, the Everett has an impressive roster of vintage power and equipment, including a U.S. Army 80-tonner, steam engines from the Bath and Hammondsport and the Huntington and Broadtop Railroad. An ex-Norfolk Southern B-32-8 acquired the very month we shot this video in a model no longer found on the NS roster, plus flat cars, ballast cars, coaches, and other types of rolling stock of Conrail, Jersey Central, Pennsylvania, Baltimore and Ohio, Shawmut, and the Bessemer and Lake Erie heritage. The 1712 is a former Clinchfield Railroad engine and one of two GP16s owned by the railroad, the other being the 1828, which is of Seaboard Airline heritage. At the top of the Allegheny Mountains is the small legendary railroad town of Glitzen, Pennsylvania. This is where the Pennsylvania Railroad crested the summit and began its downward descent of the west slope. Like many mountain railroads, the Pennsy deemed it practical to burrow through the tip of the mountain and did so with the Glitzen tunnels and another about half a mile away. So connected was Glitzen to the railroad that even to this day that union remains clearly obvious. The Jackson Street overpass is great for catching overhead shots of the passing trains. Down at ground level, you might catch some local switching on a lucky day. The main event for most rail fans, however, is the storming of upgrade trains out of the tunnel bore and over the summit. In Pennsy and Penn Central days, there were two tunnel bores at Glitzen. During Conrail's last decade, the railroad widened one of the tunnels and increased its vertical height to allow for the passage of double-stack trains. The other tunnel has since been sealed up. Like most places on the Pittsburgh line, the railroad action at Glitzen is ongoing, and not long after the stack train made its way over the top, here comes an empty coal train roaring through the tunnel. Judging by the time of day this train showed up, it's likely that these are empties from the Port of Baltimore on a coal train symbol somewhere between 590 and 595. From the vantage point of the railroad, Crescent, Pennsylvania was an important coal area in Pennsy, Penn Central, and Conrail times and an important helper district on the NS. In 1996, Conrail sold R.J. Corman its Clearfield, Pennsylvania cluster, which included trackage in and around the Crescent area. In the days before the SD40Es came onto the roster, Crescent was a bastion of SD80 Max and other 20th century EMD power that was used in heavy-duty pusher service. Today, the 80 Max are entering a rebuilding program that will see them reemerge as SD80 ACUs and likely have that SD70 ACE style cab. Another dirty little secret not known to a lot of rail fans is the Crescent Steel Company not far away. Looking in the background, the upper track is that of the R.J. Corman and now used by the NS 632 and 633 coal trains that used to run over the Buffalo line by way of the junction at Keating, Pennsylvania. The lower track takes you to either a railfan paradise or purgatory depending on your own personal point of view. This is a megaton chop shop, a locomotive hospice where many retired NS locomotives go to end their railroading careers. The last of the GE standard cab -8s met their end here, as did a myriad of outcasts and misfits. The latest group of diesels to wind up here are the remains of the AC-44C6M and the SD-70ACU rebuilding programs. At one time, these were the titans of modern-day railroading. Now their severed heads resemble a batch of mechanical chicken parts at poultry processing facilities around the country. Back down in the tourist part of town, the main line once again comes alive with the approach of two EMDs and a GE with the long eastbound general freight train in tow. Surprising to me are the Y-pattern signals still in use on this busy main line this late in the game. Milepost 251 will be our jumping off point of our little tour of the Altoona rail fanning area. We'll be exploring more of the NS's Chicago to New York City Speedway to the Atlantic in future videos. Until then, for Trains 21, call me AC.